Welcome to the kitchen of Chef P or Chef Papanaugh. You're in my house today, in my kitchen, because we're going to talk about heat and how heat can change matter, and they use it through different processes. We talked about freezing with the last video. Today we're going to talk about heating things up and a word called melting. Okay, now melting means we're usually changing a solid to a liquid. Okay, so in a kitchen, we do see a lot of different states of matter. In ingredients that we eat and we cook with, we see solids and liquids, and we mix them together and hopefully in the right order. And then also with a stovetop, some are electric and some are heated by a gas, and we call that a natural gas. And so there's a tube that comes through it. And then I can even show you that when we twist the knob, we can see that flame, that blue area right there is the flame, and that gets very hot. So never turn it on or cook with this without an adult present or without permission. So those states of matter are going to help us as we cook and work on a recipe today. One of the reasons I wanted to do this video with you guys is because this COVID-19 pandemic has had us inside, maybe be a little bit boring. We can't go as many places, we don't see as many people, so one of the things is that we are stuck inside. So I figured what a good thing to do is to work on something that you can do inside, or something you can look at, or something you can help someone with at home. With permission from someone at home, you could even make something. So always ask mom and dad before you do anything in the kitchen, because there are some sharp things, some dangerous things, some hot things, so you have to be careful. I wanted to give you some quick examples of some solids and liquid ingredients that we find in a kitchen, or that we can find at a grocery store if you don't have them in your kitchen. So one of the liquids that you might see a lot, you hear a lot about, people like it, comes from animals, is milk. Okay, so milk is a liquid, all right, and liquid that we can pour out, we can drink, and it's one of the ingredients that we use for baking. It's actually not an ingredient we're going to use for baking today, but it's very good paired with what we're going to be making. Now, an example of a salad are fruits and vegetables and meats. So I have some green onions that I'm going to use for a recipe tonight to cook for my family. And these green onions, we can tell because they keep their shape, whereas the milk takes the shape of its container. If we pour it out, it fills the cup. That's what it looks like. These green onions, if I put it on my hand, it looks like that. If I put it in a cup, it's going to look like it. It keeps its shape. And even when I cut it up, it's still going to look like a green onion, but just chopped into little pieces. Okay? So the hard ones, and one of the challenging ones, is an egg. So I like eggs because eggs are a little different. So they are keeping their shape, they're hard on the outside, but you might already know you need to be careful, because eggs, are they always solid or no? I don't know. Maybe we should do a test. Do you think? All right, here we go. The only way to figure out what's inside is by cracking it. And normally in class, this is what I would do in class, but we don't have a class, so you're gonna have to experience it right now. Whoa. Eggs are a solid. No dogs! But on the inside, they are liquid. A tricky ingredient that you're going to find, besides those eggs that I still have probably in my hair, is butter. So butter comes in a solid that we call a stick. And you can probably hear some noise in the background. That's the microwave putting some heat on the butter. And it's going to make it a change. So we're going to see what's going to happen when it comes out of the microwave. Because butter, when it gets heat, does go through a change that we call melting. So I didn't want to put it in for too long, but you can see that it goes from that stick to melted butter. And if I put it in for longer, that butter would be a complete liquid. So the thing I like about it is not only does it stay a liquid when it's hot, but when we put it back in the refrigerator, we can actually see it reverse, and it goes from a liquid back to a solid. So that word reversible means it can go back to how it was. We can undo it. All right, now that we've seen how matter can change with an egg being a tricky between a solid and a liquid, we saw butter and how that can change. It can be melted and it can be not frozen but cold, made it turn back into a solid. And now we're going to see what happens when that liquid egg has heat applied to it. You can probably already hear that it's changing from that sizzle. And that sizzle means it's getting nice and hot. And inside this pan, it's already starting to cook. So I'm going to cook it a little bit more, and then I will show you the change. You can already see that the egg is starting to turn into a solid. So I got to cook it a little bit more just to make sure it's all the way cooked through. We can see just how fast that changes. So that liquid that was on the inside and mushed all over my head is now quickly being turned into an egg, which is going to turn into an egg sandwich for a snack for Mrs. Papanaugh, since she's been working hard all day. So let me finish cooking that up. And now you can start to see. This is what a fried egg looks like. All right, to show you how states of matter work together, we're going to be actually baking chocolate chip cookies. Now, this is just a recipe I found searching on Google, but if you look on the back of any chocolate chip bags that you might have at the store, there's always a recipe. And so what I like to say is cooking is like the best school day ever, because you have to follow directions by reading, there's measuring you have to do for math, and you really have to think about following those directions step by step, because if you don't, sometimes whatever you're making can turn out a little bit different than what it's supposed to be. So even the order of combining certain ingredients can either make something lumpy or not lumpy and change the texture that the food that you're making could be like. So what we're going to do is we are going to start by me pulling up our recipe, and it says that I've got to put together the butter, which I've already softened because butter melts, okay? It turns from that solid to that liquid form. So what I did was I softened it, which isn't quite melted, but it's starting to turn that way. Then I combined the sugar, so regular white sugar. So it's a little bit different than brown sugar. I don't know what properties they have other than their color difference. So I'm going to combine the sugar that it told me to do. And then I'm going to combine the brown sugar in there together. And it says I have to mix that together. So I'm going to take a quick pause while I do that. All right, we're back. I'm sorry that took so long. I'm trying not to turn this into a show of Nailed It, where they actually mess up the cooking really bad. So what I'm going to try and do is go on to the next step. Now, I've never used a mixer before, so I'm sorry that took so long. But it says that after we do that, we need to beat in one egg at a time and then stir in some vanilla. So I'm going to pause our video again while I do those steps. The thing that I think is fascinating about the eggs is that eggs, like we talked about earlier, are solids and liquids. So I can't wait to see how this turns out. So I just mixed in the baking soda and the water that it asked for. So that's a solid and a liquid. Now it's kind of like just a milky liquid, like a very light colored liquid. So it says it wants me to pour that in the batter, along with the salt that I already measured out. So we need half a teaspoon of salt. So I add that in. And then it says stir in the flour and the chocolate chips and the nuts. Let me grab flour. I'm glad you guys can't see the whole kitchen because it is an absolute mess. So it wants me to do 1 cup of flour, and if I'm doing something wrong and someone at home knows I'm doing it, you need to send me some tips. So 1 cup of flour, 2 cups of flour, and 3 cups of flour. Now, this is my first time baking anything homemade. So don't be afraid to try anything new, just like I'm trying something new for the first time. So we'll stir that in so it doesn't get too messy. All right, all seems to be going well so far. So I'm going to pause it so I can finish doing this and add the next ingredients. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding this cookie dough, which honestly doesn't look like it has the right consistency, to put it on top of a baking sheet and put it into the oven. Now the oven, remember, is gonna heat it up, and we're gonna see a change from this like gooey cookie dough all the way into what should be, and hopefully is, a cookie. So we will see at the very end. All right, so here we are at the end of cooking, and the cookies have been in from our first batch, and it's time to take them out and see what they look like. So bear with me while we take it out of the oven. And they look like real cookies. Now, we always want to be safe and make sure they have time to cool down so we don't burn our lips or our tongue or anything like that, or our hands. So I actually see that mine are still a little mushy. I don't know if that's a liquid or a solid, it's kind of in between. But I want to make sure they cook a little bit longer, so that way I know they're all the way cooked through, because we use eggs and it's dangerous to eat raw eggs. So we want to make sure it's fully cooked. So we'll add 5 more minutes on the timer and see how it turns out.